Okay, this is problem 4, and it's actually one of 3 different major types of problems, I guess. Well, more than 3 if you think about it, but this is a fixed end, more or less essential, same as a cantilever. So you've got a fixed end down here. I've only shown at this point the 2 reactions. I'll see if I can get my ribbon up here. You can see a little bit more. In addition to these reactions in the X and the Y, of course, you also have a reaction, a potential moment reaction. And you generally show that, right? You just show that as a moment, okay? So you got the reaction, right? You got the reaction, the X and the Y. And let's see how you solve that problem. Well, once again, you can just solve the reactions by R cross F because you have 3 unknowns. Or you can go about doing this. I'm going to try to, last time, show how you can slide vectors and add them together. So I'm going to do that here in PowerPoint, so you can maybe see some of the visual and see some of how one makes stuff like this. I'm holding the Shift key and adding that. I'm hitting it right here and grouping them. That keeps them all together now. So now when I draft some lines on top of these things, it should not be so bad to slide them. So again, I pull this with a print screen, actually, the print screen off of Google Docs, which of course is in AutoCAD. Now when that's so jumpy like that in PowerPoint, obviously, like in a lot of things, you got to turn off these snaps to grid, and then things shouldn't be so jumpy. Hopefully not. So I'm grabbing, putting this force over the top of that. That's so I can kind of slide it graphically. Once again, probably done pretty well by paper. Very well done, nicely in AutoCAD. Very nicely in SketchUp. But in terms of showing movement, sometimes some of those programs you need an additional thing to do them. So I'm going to go ahead and add a second vector here on top of that one. And I'm going to add that third vector on top of this one. And in the end, I'm going to try to grab and make them all a lot heavier so you can see them. So I'm going to grab that one. I'm holding the Shift key, grabbing that one, holding the Shift key, holding that one, going right click, format object, and then hopefully we can change the width of those objects to something a little bit more. And there they are. So how do you solve this problem? Once again, you slide things tip to tail. That said, I can now go through and draft some lines on top of lines so that we have points of concurrency. I have that point there, which means I can take this one here. I hope, if that's the right one, it's probably not. The grabbing part on some of these things is where you start to use the window well. So I'm going to go and just basically pull this thing down. That's not going to happen for me. Trying to grab just the end here. It's not doing it for me. That's not doing it for me, but I'll just see if I can grab the 2 of them. See if that one will slide for me. It will. So I add those vectors tip to tail. And that is not adding them tip to tail because you need to slide both of the vectors. Both of the vectors have to be slidden down. That, I think, is where many people are kind of missing. So you slid these 2 vectors tip to tail, and now you've got to add them tip to tail. So you do that by however you can in this program, getting them slid together. You now have a new vector which you can now draft these 2 together. And if you're smart or not so smart, it's really hard to keep track of a lot of these on the page without using different colors. So I'm going to zoom out here a little bit in my PowerPoint, and hopefully I get the space. Now I've got these 2 lines, which I can once again take this one, right click, format shape, give it some thickness so I can keep track of it, mostly so I can keep track of those lines. I've got now this vector and this vector, which I can once again then draft, hopefully, something that estimates the points of concurrency. Once again, shapes here. You get the point of concurrency. Then, depending if the program's going to let you or not, you grab those things and move them to the point of concurrency. Let's see if we can do, again, a window selection here. Now we should be able to move that. That's not the one I want. Try to grab here a window. That's not doing it for me. It's not doing a bad job, however. We do an undo here. Try it one more time. That's, you start to learn which program works best for you. And this one, it's not bad, but it has some issues. And so with that in mind, I'm going to kind of visually do this now. This one's going to come down here. This one's going to come up there. And my basic resultant is going to be something that looks like in the order of this is this way and this is down. I'm going to just kind of draft it because I can't function in this software. I'm going to go down to there, and then I'm going to kind of go down this distance, and my assumption is that's something like this. I'll try it one more time here just to finish this out. Once again, to keep track of things, right-click, format shape, give it a good distance here, good thickness, and let's assume that's my reaction. My reaction is not this, it's not that, and that's that. It is this, isn't it? It's from that point of concurrency of my last two to something like that, because you added this vector and that vector to get this vector about that point of concurrency. Now you clean it up. You can see how CAD does help a lot. It's a little bit more for you to, easy for you to control, but eventually if you're trying to do things like demonstrations, it is worthwhile to learn how to either use layering or whatever else in CAD. I'm going to go ahead finally and change that to right click, format the shape, just like everything's right click. A student told me the other day, and they're pretty much right in AutoCAD and most programs. And now the last thing you've got to do, I'm going to zoom in for that general sense of if you're going to slide this to the left, that you need to then put a moment on there. So as you slide this to the left, and I'm going to go ahead and first slide it down. You slide it there, you can do that, but when you go ahead and do this, in this case I'm just going to copy it. I'm going to do a right click, copy, right click, paste. When I do this, when I slide that vector so that it emanates from that point right there, when I slide it across here, and I guess I can take that here and just show you, I really should have slid it down there. When I slide that vector, I also have to apply then a moment. And that moment has to kind of show the way the moment, it's equal to the area of the rectangle when you slide it a perpendicular distance. And right now, in other words, when we slid that, when I go from this to this, I've got to add that. So I get rid of this now, I cut it, and there you have it. Now once again, this is no different than R cross F, but right now you have the reactions. The reactions are the opposite of these. So this reaction has to be equal to that, and the reaction here has to be up and to the left. So your reaction will be something that looks in the order of this. Whoops. So your reactions in the end are going to be, I'm going to erase that, and I'm going to just take this, and I think format shape, will it let me rotate it 180? I don't think it will, so I'm just going to go ahead and draft next to it if you would, and then I'll get rid of the one we had. So that in a cinch, that's what's going on. And if you start now walking up the structure, you can see that you're going to have a negative moment if you think from the right side in this. So this turns out to be the shear in your axial as you work up the structure, and it's going to be a consistent. It's going to change as you go up this thing, but as you fly up the structure, you're reacting to a moment reaction here, and then in addition to that, you've got the effect of the shear going across, which is going to change the moment diagram. So that's solving for the reactions on that one. We'll do the what's behind you is not important and another reaction solving later. Thanks for listening.